You've invested in 52 or so companies. You obviously have been on Shark Tank for a very long time. You know what what successful founders look like, what entrepreneurs that are really successful sound like, and all their different traits. So I thought we could play a fun game called Rate the Traits. And basically, I'm going to list off a trait about entrepreneurship, and you're going to let me know, is it a 10? Is it a 1? We'll rate them 1 through 10.
10 is the high score.
10 is the high score.
Got it. I'm
Okay.
interested.
All right,
okay,
so we're going to
go.
rate them 1 through 10, 10 being really needed for successful entrepreneurship, 1 being not so needed, okay? First prompt, creativity.
10.
Why?
That's problem solving. That's when you get punched in the face. If you don't have a creative bone in your body, you're just going to keep getting punched in the face. You got to think outside of the box. That is the definition of creativity. You have to realize, ouch, that hurt. I don't want another punch like that. How am I going to solve for that? That is using the brain.
Okay, next one. High risk tolerance.
I'm going to give it a 5. Risk tolerance can also be stupidity. Doing things because I can take the risk, and keep failing. You're an idiot. I mean, the whole idea is to mitigate risk. In fact, I'm going to give it a 1. Don't do stupid stuff. Like, don't do it. Don't keep risking it all over and over again. The whole idea is to find the path of least resistance without the risk. But it's true that when you launch, you're taking huge risks. But as you build it past the first 100,000, you want to stop taking the risks and start to mitigate the risk. So it's the launch itself. You need some kahunas, because most people say, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. You have to try, even though you're going to fail 3 times at least, probably. But you only need 1 hit to make it, to get your 5 milski.
Yeah. Okay, being able to tell good stories, so your storytelling ability.
10. 10, 10, 10, 11. The world's changed so much that if you can't tell the story of your product or service, if you can't capture someone's imagination about the promise of your brand, you will fail. Storytelling is the whole deal, because we are living in a social media customer acquisition cost model now for large and small companies. Great storytellers, people that can capture the audience, capture the potential customer, bring them into the aura of the promise of the brand. These are great entrepreneurs. These are great social media directors. These are great editors, storytellers, videographers, photographers. They tell stories. And you know what? I'm going to give it a 15. That's how much I feel about it.
Wow. Charisma.
Not important. I'll tell you why. I do business and invest in a lot of assholes that have no charisma, but they have remarkable executional skills. Charisma can be also bullshit. You know, you want sexy charisma, you show me executional skills. That's sexy. The fact that you can set a goal each quarter and hit it, that's charisma. So, you know, traditional definition of charisma is bullshit when it comes to being an entrepreneur.
Industry experience.
Yeah, I'm going to give it an 8, and I'll tell you why. There's a concept developed in Europe decades ago, hundreds of years ago, in places like Switzerland and France, Germany, Italy, where they create apprentice programs where they bring talent in as young as 14, and they let them work for a stipend and a free lunch or whatever after their school at 4 o'clock till 7 at night, so that they can experience what it's like to work in a business and understand what the passion is of that business, whether it's watchmaking or pharmaceuticals or tire making or high-end machinery in Switzerland, whatever it is, to see if they have the attribute or the DNA to connect with what that's about. Particularly important in the watchmaking industry. When they identify you to be a master watchmaker when you're 14, you're going to commit your whole life to it. I know a lot about that. And that's industry experience, but at a very early age, so you can find out, do you connect with the cosmos of that business? And is that your path for your life? You don't know until you try.
Okay, last one. Failing fast.
Yeah, that's a buzzword in the Valley. I don't put a lot of weight on it. I'll tell you why. I'm going to give it a 2. But here's the rule that I've put in place. In your launch years, in your mid to late 20s and you decided you're going to pursue the entrepreneurial path, one of your most important assets is time. So, and I've seen this countless times with entrepreneurs. I meet them in their 5th year of beating a dead horse that just never took off, but they're so emotionally attached to this piece of shit idea that they're going to bankrupt their parents through mortgaging their parents' home. I mean, I've seen it so many times. If after 36 months, it's not working, and by working, I mean it's growing and it's profitable and you clearly have figured out how to acquire customers, take it behind the barn and shoot it. I'll do it for you. Good bottle of wine, shoot it behind the barn because it is killing you. It is sucking your energy, and it is basically taking away from the most valuable thing you have, the time to start a new idea. Entrepreneurs deal with failure. They have to, because they're going to fail. There's no such thing of just starting something out of the basement. It happens so rarely that it won't happen to you, I can tell you that. You can't, I prefer to shoot them after 2 years. If in 15 months they haven't figured out CAC, customer acquisition, they're going to fail.
Yeah.
And why spend any time on a dead idea that didn't work? It's okay, it didn't work. Who gives a shit? Move on. I much prefer to invest in entrepreneurs that felt the sting of failure, but understand. So, fail fast. If it means take it behind the barn and shoot it early, great. But shoot it. And don't let anybody tell you, no, you got to keep on going and wasting everybody's time and money. Because remember, the people that you're employing, you're also hurting them. You have a responsibility to tell the truth to them and say, look, this idea didn't work. I'm going to fire you with this best, package I can give you, but I'm also starting something else. You get a lot of respect for that. You really do, to admit failure and own it. And the thing that drives me crazy about people, and I'm telling you to listen to this because I get pitched a lot, and I say, well, what did you do before this? What were you doing the last 2 years? And they talk about a business, and they tell you it failed, but it wasn't their fault. They'll tell you every reason on earth why it wasn't their fault. Bullshit. They should own it. It's 100% their fault. They were the founder and the CEO. It wasn't anybody else. They are the person who failed. Unless I hear that, I never invest in them. There's so many people that want to believe, oh, the market changed. Oh, the competitors changed their prices. Oh, there was dumping on the market from China. Yada, 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 yada. Bullshit, all bullshit. They failed.
So accountability.
100%. And some of them walk away in tears when I force their nose into, when a puppy takes a shit in the house and the first time you're going to roll up a newspaper, stick his nose in it, give him a little whack, they never shit in the house again. I stick their nose in their failure and I whack them with a newspaper and say, this shit is your shit. You dumped this. You failed. Now smell it. That's what has to happen.
Well, that was a fun game. Is there any other traits that you want to call out that you think makes a good entrepreneur?
Yeah, I'm going to give you some interesting points that I learned. After all this time and investing in so many different people, and after a few years, I start to see which ones are successful, and I look at their traits. And let me give you some. Remember, these are in different sectors. They don't know each other. Different businesses completely. And yet they're successful versus ones that are not so much, because even in a venture portfolio like mine, maybe 3 out of 10 really work.
And what do you consider a successful business? Like, how big do you have to grow before you can?
Well, the classic venture capital model is if you invest in 10 deals, 5 years later, 2 have gone bankrupt, 6 of them are living dead, just sucking your time. They're not going anywhere. They should be shot behind the barn, but they won't shoot them. And 2 of them made 1,000x, and they paid for all your mistakes. So, as an investor, you want to focus on your winners, and you got to figure out which ones are losers and winners. We do a little bit better on Shark Tank deals because we have 110 million eyeballs seeing the product in syndication, so our customer acquisition costs are lower. So let's call it 3 to 4 out of 10 work. So even a marginal business works on Shark Tank. One of the reasons you want to get on Shark Tank is that free 8 minutes of network television on in perpetuity and syndication. Ask any entrepreneur. Their product just keeps showing up on television every night.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. And so we want to invest in companies like that. But what happens is you look at the traits of those people in the winners. And let me tell you what they are. Very boring in some ways, but you'll find this fascinating. Number one, this may sound crazy, but it's true. Diet. Somehow along the way, they've decided that food is important to them. Not some crazy Atkins diet, none of that stuff. The rule that I learned from two of them, and they didn't even know each other, was they look at their body weight. Let's say they weigh 150 pounds. They eat 150 grams of protein a day, 1 gram for each pound, which is very hard to do, by the way, very hard. But you don't have to modify your diet that much. You just have to decide what you're eating, and it has to be more protein-based. There's lots of ways to do it. There's lots of apps you can use. Lose It. It's free. You just take a picture. AI tells you how many grams of protein in the serving, and it just adds it up for you during the day. And the other app that I use, because I'm doing this myself now, is Yuka, Y-U-K-A. Scan any snack, and it tells you a score from 0 to 100. Anything lower than 60, don't put it in your mouth. After about 10 weeks of just following this protocol, your energy level goes through the roof. It's unreal how good you feel. That's number one. Number two, the classic exercise. All the entrepreneurs that are successful have found a way to spend some portion of the day exercising. Sometimes it's only 10,000 steps a day. That's it. I do cycling. Those two together kind of, now this one is really interesting. See, I'm wearing an Aura ring here. I got into this about 4 years ago. A great entrepreneur showed me this product. It was more of a prototype back then. Sleep. You know, decision-making and critical thinking and sleep go together. Yeah. So you really want to try and figure out sleep. And it's not just any sleep. These rings and these other devices, there's many other devices, break down your sleep into the REM sleep and the deep sleep. You want REM sleep. That's your brain being cleansed for the next day. Unfortunately, sleep doesn't work with alcohol. And this is a big problem for me. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs, but I love wine. And if you drink wine 3 hours before you go to bed, you don't get any REM sleep. It really your sleep. So the strategy you got to go to is drink at breakfast and don't drink again, because at the end of the day, if you can get those 7 hours, the sleep, the diet, and the exercise, you can't believe how you feel. As an entrepreneur, you need that energy, and you're going to get it. And most of my entrepreneurs are hip to this now and are struggling with the whole wine thing, or they're moving to the purest tequila or something, or they don't drink it before they go to bed, or they don't drink 3 days a week, or whatever it is. Everybody's trying to solve for this alcohol problem because all the rings are showing you get no REM. And one last one, and this is the one that I really have learned, and you got to try it. Entrepreneurs, once they're successful or growing their business, get in a rut. They only want to do things that give them a good outcome because they've been trained, they've been punched in the face so many times that they get into this routine of only doing the things they know well over and over and over again all day long. And it's easy to get there, particularly when the team is humming, sales are coming in, everything's going great. But the one most important exercise you're not getting is that on your brain, because you're now in the maintenance mode. And that's not where great creativity comes from. So you have to get into a position, and this is very, very difficult, but I've done it, and believe me, it works. And I learned it from one of my great women CEOs years ago. She said, you've got to spend a portion of every day outside of your comfort zone in some space that you're very nervous about getting into because you're scared you're going to fail and you're going to be embarrassed in front of your team or in front of your family, or you can't do it, or you don't think you can do it. It could be learning how to play the cello. It could be painting. It could be mahjong or something, or chess, or it doesn't matter. It's something you don't know how to do that you're forcing your brain to deal with, and the uncertainty. This gives you a superpower because you're basically recharging your ability to solve problems that you have no idea how to solve. And 50% of the time, you're successful. This is the superpower for really good entrepreneurs to do. And yet no one wants to do it because, oh, I don't want to be embarrassed. So I'm telling you the story because last year I got a phone call from one of my agents, and he said, listen, Kevin, have you ever heard of Josh Safdie? He said, yeah, that's the guy that directed Uncut Gems, and Ronnie Bronstein wrote it. It's a great movie, Adam Sandler, dark comedy. He said he's making a new movie called Marty Supreme, and they're looking for a real asshole, and they think you're it. I said, I don't act. He said, yeah, I know that. And I'm just telling you, if you're going to pursue this, you could shit the bed and destroy your brand. You could look like a real dick. But that's when it hit me. I got to do this.
Yeah, it's
I got to
exactly what
try
you need
it.
to
I
do.
got to see if I can learn 70 pages of script. You know, how do I do that when I'm dyslexic? How am I going to memorize all that stuff? I said, F it, do it. Like, just see what happens. We finished it a few weeks ago. It's had some screenings, and the buzz for Timothy Chalamet. So it's Timothy Chalamet. I'm Gwyneth Paltrow's husband. It's a movie from the 50s.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was shot in New York and Tokyo. And the experience was remarkable. But the buzz for that movie, and this has really not that much to do with me because I'm just a supporting actor, is Oscar. So I would love that thing to win. I'd like Timmy to win one. I'd like the director to win one because that would be great for my little contribution in that. But I worked on that for 8 months, and it was totally outside of my comfort zone. So the point is, do something today outside of your comfort zone, whatever it is, because you're not doing that. I know you're not doing that. No one's doing that. And it's a superpower.